wanted to use
really sure.
Catholic University and all of you that have put this event on and all of you that have come to it today for this opportunity that you've given me to talk about the role of values in our society and in our well-being as a nation. Let me begin by saying that the modern world that we all live in tell us that success is measured by how much money you make or how much we own or how famous we become. And I would say that judged by these standards, my background is certainly not one of privilege. My parents immigrated here almost 6 decades ago with little money or any formal education. They worked service sector jobs and had little connections to power or to influence. And yet I consider myself to be a child of privilege, because I was raised by 2 parents who were married to each other, who instilled in their children the expectation that we would get our education, that we would find fulfilling careers, that one day we would get married and start families of our own. And so while we weren't rich or well-connected, my background, coming from a strong and stable family, has given me an enormous advantage in life, because I was taught certain values that led me to live my life in a sequence that has a proven track record of success. In America, if you get an education, find a good job, and wait until marriage to have children, your chances of achieving economic security and professional fulfillment are incredibly high. In fact, if everyone in America lived lives that went in this order, in the order I've just outlined, some estimates are that the poverty rate would be cut by an estimated 70%. But now, each element of this success sequence is eroding in our country. Many Americans lack the education needed for the better jobs of the 21st century. Many either can't find a good job or have, quite frankly, stopped looking for one, have given up. Marriage rates are on a steep decline, and a higher proportion of children are raised in single-parent homes in America than in the vast majority of developed nations. The economic price of this erosion in the success sequence is staggering. The unemployment rate is almost twice as high for those with only high school diplomas as it is with those with bachelor degrees, and almost 3 times as high for high school dropouts. Over 20% of children raised without both parents live in poverty long-term, compared with just 2% of those raised in intact families. And only around 40% of children growing up in poor single-parent homes will ever make it to the middle class or beyond. Now, too often in modern politics, debates about our values have been viewed as either wedges to win elections or unnecessary distractions to be avoided. But the truth is that the social and the moral well-being of our people has a direct and consequential impact on their economic well-being. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity today to discuss how we can help restore the American dream by restoring the values that make it possible. No one is born with the values that are crucial to the success sequence. They have to be taught to us, and they have to be reinforced. Strong families are the primary and most effective teachers of these values. And as the social philosopher Michael Novak once said, the family is the original and best department of health, education, and welfare. It is crucial in developing the character of the young, and those efforts can be reinforced in our schools, religious institutions, civic groups, and our society. That's why reinvigorating the values behind the success sequence begins, by reinvigorating the institutions that teach and reinforce these values. It is through our role as parents, as neighbors, as volunteers, as members of faith communities, it is in these roles that we can have the greatest influence on the social and the moral well-being of our people. Societal breakdown is not a problem that the government alone can solve. But it's also not one that the government can afford to ignore. We need leaders willing to use the platform of public office to call attention to the impact societal breakdown is having on our nation. We need leaders in both parties, willing to acknowledge that one of the principal reasons why so many people are struggling is because too many aren't getting an education, too many aren't working, too many aren't getting married, and too many are having children outside of marriage. But we also need leaders in both parties, willing to acknowledge that many single parents and the children they are raising are not going to have an equal opportunity to achieve a better life unless we do something to help them. Having more political leaders publicly recognize the link between our social well-being and our economic well-being would be enormously useful. And government reforms that promote or remove impediments to education, to work, marriage, and two-parent homes would help change the direction of our country. In the 21st century, a good education is not just an option, it's a necessity. And no group in America faces more impediments to a good education than children being raised by single parents, many of whom are doing a heroic job of raising their children by themselves. If they were wealthy, they wouldn't have as big a problem because they would simply pay to send their children to better schools. But lower-income parents cannot afford that. They do not have the financial means to send their kids to schools, private or religious schools, and so the government gives them no option other than sending their children to failing schools, even if just down the street there are schools with higher test scores or better graduation rates. Low-income children are also the least likely to get a good education because they are the only ones forced to attend schools not of their parents' choice. In order to give them a chance at the first element of the success sequence, we need our government to give their parents the opportunity to choose the education that is right for them. That's one of the reasons why I've proposed a tax credit that would encourage contributions to scholarship granting organizations, which would distribute private school scholarships to children in need. And I've advocated for more funding and more flexibility for our nation's innovative charter schools. Finding a job is the second part of the success sequence. Helping people find work begins with an economy that creates good-paying jobs. To create this growth-oriented economy, I introduced an agenda this year to enact pro-growth and pro-innovation policies, harness the power of emerging industries, and open our businesses to hundreds of millions of new customers around the world. But helping our people find good jobs will also require reinvigorating the value of work. To do so, we must reform the way we fight poverty. Our current anti-poverty programs are incomplete because while they help to alleviate some of the pain of poverty, they do not do nearly enough to cure it. The best cure for poverty is a good-paying job. That's why our anti-poverty programs must be reformed to incentivize work and bolster training and education. The innovations we need to achieve these reforms will never come from the federal government, which has tried and failed for 50 years to significantly curb poverty. Only states and local communities have been able to craft and execute effective programs. Earlier this year, I outlined my plan to transfer all federal anti-poverty spending to the states so they could design more programs tailored to the unique, localized causes of opportunity inequality, programs that will not just alleviate the pain of poverty, but also help to cure it. And finally, helping people attain good-paying jobs in the 21st century increasingly means having access to higher education. One of the primary reasons single mothers and their children struggle is that our current higher education system lacks the access points and the variety of options that people like them need. That's why I've proposed reforms to make higher education more affordable and more accessible, especially for those who have to work full-time and raise a family. This includes a series of policies aimed at promoting career and vocational opportunities, some which can begin as early as high school. For example, as an air conditioning technician, so they can be here today. But opportunities that allow you so that just after you finish high school, they don't just have a high school diploma, but they also have a job-ready industry certification that prepares them and allows them to go to work immediately. I propose reforms that would increase access to more affordable higher education options, such as online programs, through changes to our accreditation system, because we all know that higher education is no longer a luxury for a few, it is now a necessity for all. After getting an education and finding a good job, the third element of the success sequence is marriage. Of course, you can achieve success without being married, but the link between marriage and economic security is undeniable.